Hello, in this video we're going to look at functions in Go, and there are different things you can do with functions. There are different ways you can use them, but we're going to start with something very simple. So pretty much a function is a block of code which is executed when you call it. So you can have a block of code like here called do something, and when you invoke do something, like right here in the main function, it's gonna perform this piece of code. So what we have here is the main function, as always, and outside the main function we have two other functions which we've created. One's called do something and one's called add. Let's take a look at do something. So to create a function, you just want to write the keyword func. Then here, in front of the function identifier, the function name, you'd have something called a receiver, but we're going to look at that when we talk about interfaces. So for now, just nothing in front of the name, just a space between func and the name. Then the parentheses, and in here you can pass any parameters or arguments. So as you can see, we have empty parentheses here, and that means we're not passing any values into the function. So this, as we can see here, we just do something, and it doesn't need any external data. And here's something interesting about Go: the return type. If you come from C++, for example, the return type usually goes in front, so you'd have int do something and return something. Well, in Go it goes at the end of the parentheses, at the end of the parameters, and here, so in between the parentheses and the opening bracket. And one thing to note, in Go you cannot do that. That doesn't work, because the Go compiler, what it does is puts a semicolon at the end of every statement. So what the compiler is going to see is this. It's just going to see this, and that doesn't make any sense to it. So in Go, the opening bracket has to be on the same line. This space is not necessary, but I just like to keep it there. And I mentioned the return type. We're going to look at the return keyword in another video, which is probably the next video. But for now, what this does is just print line and this string, and all you have to do to call it is the identifier and then the parentheses to call it. The second function we have here is more interesting. We have a function called add. As you can see, we don't have a receiver, the function identifier, add, then inside the parentheses, this time we're taking two arguments or two parameters, whatever you want to call it. In the do something we didn't take any, so as you can see we didn't put any data. But here what we're accepting is an int which we're going to call A, and an int which we're going to call B. And what this does is think of it as two slots. The first slot, which is int A, we're passing the number 2, and in the second slot, int B, we're passing the number 4. So what this does is it copies this value, the value you pass in the first slot, to A, and copies this value 4 to B. So what we're doing here is printing 2 plus 4. So that's what arguments are and how to use them. As you can see, we don't have a return type because we're going to look at that in the next video. So we're just performing a simple addition. So we're just going to run this, and as you can see, performing the do something function, and we get 2 plus 4 is 6. And another thing to note, you put in the parameters separating them by a comma. So this is one parameter, as you can see, separated by the comma, which corresponds to this, and this is the second parameter, corresponds to 4. Obviously you can have more, you can have another parameter called cint, and if you add this, it obligatory requires you to add another parameter, because if we just run this, we're going to see not enough argument in call to add. So we're not passing enough arguments, we need the third one, and obviously we have to use that, and that should print out 11. But yeah, that's the basics of function. Next video, in the next few videos, we're going to look at how to have infinite parameters, which are called variadic functions, I think they're called. We're going to look at return types. We're going to look at a few interesting keywords exclusive to Go. But I think that's all for the basics of functions. Hope you found this video helpful, and thanks for watching.